Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 15th, 2026. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, we switch gears a little bit to talk about making wine at home. Steve Wilkes joins me to help sample a rhubarb wine that homebrewer Ron Miller shared with us. And we talk in general about the process of making country wines at home. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. Financial supporters have already seen an early release of the video that Steve and I made about my Norwegian robust porter. I'm going to post that to the general public on Friday. I miscalculated the amount of hops near the end of the boil, but it turned out very tasty in spite of my poor math skills. I didn't take any math in college. I'm going to blame it on that. Financial supporters also got a behind-the-scenes video of how the beer came together and the recipe if you want to try it yourself. I highly recommend it. And thanks again to Tom at Nogno for the inspiration. You may have noticed that I've stopped putting those random ads at the beginning and end of the show. Tell you the truth, I wasn't getting enough revenue from them to make it worth the annoyance to you. So I'm depending even more on our generous Patreon supporters. We also depend on the kindness of our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast. Imperial is announcing their first seasonal strain of 2026, B45 Gnome. That's a strain that we've gotten great results with in the past. Gnome is a well-rounded Belgian ale yeast that's versatile across many styles. Belgian pale ales, Belgian IPAs, and on the other end of the spectrum, big, chewy doubles. Imperial B45 Gnome is known for high flocculation and a balanced profile, and when you look for Imperial yeast in your local homebrew store, you'll see brand new packaging that will help you choose the exact right strain for your brew. You know we love Imperial yeast with 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package. My stir plate is usually dusty because I don't use it anymore to make starters for most moderate gravity 5-gallon batches. And my airlocks are bubbling before bedtime. Ask your local homebrew store about B45 Gnome and check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. It's imperialyeast.com. Okay, let's sample some rhubarb wine with Ron Miller and Steve Wilkes. Ron Miller, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You're joining us from Fort Collins, Colorado. Is that right?
That is correct.
Nice place to be if you like, especially if you like beer and you like brewing.
Probably had 20 breweries within 10 miles of me.
Wow. And another fella who spent some time in Colorado is with us, Mr. Steve Wilkes.
Hey, James. Hey, Ron.
Oh.
We're not going to talk about beer today. We're going to talk about wine, and specifically this beautiful rhubarb wine that you sent us. And first of all, the label, I'll post a picture of it on Instagram. The label, Ron, is beautiful.
Yeah, my wife gets all the credit. She makes my labels.
Well, excellent. It looks professional. It's really well done. So give us some background. I like to when we talk to somebody for the first time, I like to get a little bit of background on you and your brewing habits, and how long have you been brewing? What do you like to brew, and all that. Give us your resume.
Well, the quick resume on me was grew up in Nebraska. Went to college, joined the Navy, pushed submarines around the Pacific for a few years, worked in the nuclear industry, got bored with that, so went back for an MBA, and 27 years ago I started IT consulting and have been doing that ever since.
Wow. And so that leads into a lot of homebrewers tend to be, on the techie side.
Yeah, I was.
Submarines are a little more than techie, James. Let's not downplay
this. So what led you into homebrewing, Ron?
Oh, bought a new house in 2005 that had some fruit trees. Well, new to us, but previous owners had some fruit trees. But we weren't getting any fruit. So I think it was 2007. We bought a package of bees and a hive. And that fall, we had 50 pounds of honey.
Wow.
Wow.
So I figured I can't eat that much honey, but I can drink quite a bit of it if I work on it. So bought a couple carboys and hydrometers, etc., and did my first shot at mead. Joe's Ancient Orange Mead recipe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I remember that. I've never done it, but
Yeah, I haven't either. I never did make that.
Yeah, that was my first.
were any balloons involved in that?
No, I went out and I bought the carboys. I got the
The airlocks.
the bubbler airlocks too.
Bubblers.
So I started there, but by December or so, of course, the mead was fermented out, and I bottled it up, and now I had carboys and equipment. And thought, geez, I better figure out how to brew beer. I've already got some of the equipment. So from then I went to beer and really got into the beer for 7, 8, 9 batches, 5-gallon batches a year for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but this place we had, of course, had fruit, I was saying. So started getting fruit now that we had bees to pollinate. And then they'd also planted, they had some rhubarb plants there. Didn't know what to do with rhubarb. You can only eat a couple of pies a year from it. So decided saw probably on Homebrew Talk. That was my go-to for most knowledge points at that point. Saw a recipe for rhubarb wine and decided to give that a shot. It turned out pretty well. So that then worked into my rotation on a probably every other year basis. I'll make a batch of that. Somewhere along the line there, we bought a pretty good sized apple press
Mm.
and started pressing apples.
So you're heavily into the fruit part of the things.
Yeah. So then I started doing cider, and we had one particular batch that was thought it'd be way too tart for cider. So I decided to try to make an apple wine out of it. So added sugar, bumped the ABV up, and fermented it out, and it turned out fairly good. It was not a lot of flavor. If you have a misspent youth and recognize the words TJ Swan, then you'll kind of know about what quality of wine it was.
Did you package it in the paper bags?
I did have my wife make up labels that said TJ Goose on it.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot more experience with on the fruit wine or country wine side of things certainly than I do. Steve, you're more of a mead man than I am, but have you ever made a country wine?
Sure, made lots of them, many of them. I'm not sure. Maybe we should do a little bit of defining terms. In other words, what is a country wine? What is a country wine? What's a city wine? I don't know.
Well, my definition of a country wine is lots of sugar and fruit for flavoring.
Kind of. I would agree with that. I think that when most people think of country wine, they think of a fruit wine,
Mm-hmm.
Or even, God forbid, something like a tomato wine or onion wine or something like that. Which I've never had either of those, but I've had people tell me they're delicious if made right. But I think that's important to kind of know what you're thinking about. Is a country wine a grape wine made with muscadine? Is that a country wine?
Could be.
I don't know. In fact, I'm actually making a muscadine wine right now, as a matter of fact.
I would think that muscadine, if you had enough of it, you could probably make, just a muscadine wine.
That's right.
Without fortifying it with sugar. But other, fruits and maybe even flowers, like Don Osborne sent me dandelion wine one time that
Right.
was really good. But when my definition of country wines, and we may get letters because everybody probably has a different definition and a different technique. But my definition of a country wine is using a lot of sugar as an adjunct.
Okay.
Well, I'm open to debate.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to make a debate out of it. It's just, and I kind of agree that this wine that I've got going right now, it's just a 2.5 gallon batch, and I only had 4 pounds of muscadine, so I'd had to decide what to do with it, and I started to make a small batch of muscadine mead, but I also had, so I'm actually making a real country wine. I think it's 4 pounds of muscadine wine, one, I guess, half gallon of Welch's Concord grape juice that I just had in the cupboard. That I thought, well, I'm just going to throw that in there, and then enough table sugar to bring the bricks up to a 12% wine.
Huh.
In other words, when it ferments out, and so I think it took about 3.5 pounds of sugar in that batch to get the bricks where I wanted it.
Right.
And I think it'll be a nice little summer, wine. It's not going to win any James Beard awards or anything like that, but it'll make a nice wine in the same way that this rhubarb wine is delightful. It's very nice, and much more sophisticated, wine than you would expect from rhubarb.
Yeah, I got to say, and maybe we should talk about our sort of tasting notes before we ask Ron about his process. But when I heard rhubarb wine, I was expecting to have a pucker fest. I was expecting to go, oh, but it's not that at all. It's got a nice fruit flavor. It's a tiny bit tart, but just enough to be crisp and kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
What do you think? You've got a better, more informed wine palate than me, Steve.
Well, I mean, it's not overly sweet. In fact, I'd say there's probably not any residual sugar left in this, but it does have a nice, crisp, slightly sweet on the beginning of your palate, the beginning taste, and then it kind of finishes with kind of a savory note, I think, and so it's definitely not a Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill kind of thing,
Mad Dog
or Thunderbird, or
Well, thank you.
Mad Dog. It's definitely not any of that. And I've had some really, really fine fruit wines from good wineries out in New Mexico and Colorado and those kind of places, and they make some very good cherry wines, for instance, and apple wines commercially. And this stacks up very nice. I'm impressed with how clean the flavor is. I'm impressed with how it doesn't have a table sugar wang to it, which sometimes these wines can get that way. And I'm curious, Ron, if you back sweetened it at all.
I did not. No.
I didn't think so.
Walk us through your process, Ron. Walk us through your recipe. How'd you make this?
Used 3 pounds of rhubarb per gallon. So collect the rhubarb and I run it through a food processor, just slicing it like 1/8 little slices. For people who aren't familiar with rhubarb, it grows as a stalk, almost similar to celery stalk. So you've got a long stalk, and you can run it through a food processor, just slice it up into the little slices, and then I freeze it to help break down the cells so you get better fruit. And then when it's time to actually make the wine, thaw it out, and I just 5-gallon bucket, put a paint strainer bag in it and put the fruit into the bag, and then add everything else to it and stir. So for this particular batch, we had 9 pounds of rhubarb, filled it up to 3 and then 6 pounds, 10 ounces of sugar, and filled the bucket up to just a little over 3.5 gallons. I've got food grade buckets with marks on them, so you can see it pretty easily.
And that's filled it up with water, I'm assuming.
Yes, filled it up with water to a little over 3.5 gallons, added a half teaspoon of Epsom salts, 1 tablespoon of calcium carbonate, 3 tablespoons of yeast nutrient, 3 teaspoons of yeast nutrient, 3 teaspoons of DAP, and then pitched 1 pack of Premier Classic and 1 pack of D47.
Oh,
I
wow.
found that for things that are going to be tart, rhubarb, and like that apple wine I was describing earlier, it went really tart. When the acidity goes up, pH gets low, I found D47 keeps chugging along.
Hmm.
It doesn't stall out.
I've heard that. I've only used D47 2 or 3 times, and so I'm certainly no expert with it. But I have heard that it'll kind of keep chugging when others won't.
Yeah, I've had apple wine. Well, I've always used D47 on the rhubarb, so I don't know, but I did have apple wine. I think I was using just 71B maybe because I probably had a bunch of it for mead. And it stalled out, but I pitched D47 on top and it kicked back in and finished off.
Ah,
Let me know. There you go.
I'm surprised that you didn't have to do any kind of like a simmering in water, or maybe using a steam juicer like we've used in the past to get the good stuff out of the rhubarb.
Then you just put a cloth over it and something around it to keep fruit flies out. And for the first 3 days or so, it'll form a cap. It'll come up, push that cap down a couple times a day,
Mm-hmm.
and then 3 or 4 days later, when the cap doesn't come up as well, I just go ahead and pull the paint strainer bag, squeeze as much juice out of it as I can, and then dump the resulting liquid into a carboy and put the airlock on it and leave it alone.
Huh. So it's brew in a bag in a different way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much how I do it. It's almost exactly how I make a fruit wine or a mead with fruit, and for me the biggest difference between, just to get back to like what's the difference between a mead and a wine in this instance, I think it's just the kind of sugar that you use. It's the kind of fermentable that you use. And I actually opted myself to make a muscadine wine instead of a muscadine mead just because that was cheap. Meaning, honey's like, $10 a pound now, and sugar's like still, not very much. So I went with the sugar.
And you didn't. As I was scanning a lot of recommendations online of steps to make a fruit wine, and some like to do the sort of liquid, adding water and kind of simmering the fruit in the beginning to kind of extract the juices or to soften the fruit up, and some choose to add a Camden tablet in that concentrated must for 24 hours to make sure that any wild yeast is either suppressed or killed. In your making of fruit wines, has that ever become an issue?
Actually, I haven't on the wines. On like making ciders, I've had to go back and pasteurize them because they definitely would have a wild infection of some kind on them.
There's going to be yeast on the fruit sometimes.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to kind of have an insurance policy against that, they could add a Camden tablet and let it sit. And I guess, Steve, after 24 hours, the Camden tablet dissipates, or it's no longer an issue.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you have to dose it, appropriately, of course, and then you allow it to do its work. And what it's actually doing is it's producing a small amount of sulfur gas. I don't know the exact chemical name of it, but there's a little sulfur gas being made, and that pasteurizes the product, and then that dissipates, and that's part of that kind of stir it every so many hours for so many days kind of thing helps that along. I have to admit that I used on this little muscadine thing I did. I heat pasteurized it. I kind of didn't want to fool around stirring it, and I just kind of wanted to be done with it. So I brought it up to 160 and just held it there for about 15 minutes, and then moved out smartly. After that, just went ahead and brewed cooled it and pitched the product, and pitched the yeast. And either way will work. But the downside to using heat, of course, is that you drive off a lot of the volatile flavors that are very delicate and can be easily lost in boiling or cooking it. So you lose a lot of the fresh flavor if you overdo it. Again, on this one, I was just kind of like, well, it just wasn't that big a deal, and I didn't feel like I would harm the flavor very much by doing that. Now, let's say if it was strawberries, you wouldn't want to do that. You'd drive off. You wouldn't taste anything.
Right.
But
right.
Muscadine has such a strong flavor. I felt like I wouldn't hurt it to do it that way. And I'm curious on the rhubarb how. So when you say you sliced it, you just cut it into just kind of small chunks, just to give it as much what surface area as possible.
Surface area, yeah. So it, like I say, it kind of looks like a rhubarb. Rhubarb stalk kind of looks like a celery stalk.
Yeah.
And so running it through the food presser, it was making these little coin. It makes it into little coin-shaped slices.
Now this wine is pretty darn clear, but I would assume that there are fruits that you would probably want to use like a pectic enzyme to to help clarify the wine later on. Have either of you guys used that?
I have used that on apple.
Yeah, I use it almost any time I have fruit involved in a wine or a mead. I like to use it, and although I didn't have any this time I was out, but it's definitely helpful, I think, to use it. Did you use pectic enzyme on this one? I'm just curious.
I did not.
Did not. Oh, it's a beautiful wine. It's lovely. It almost looks like a very pale rosé.
Yeah, that particular year, there's various varieties of rhubarb, and the one that I was able to, because we moved to a new place, so I was reestablishing my rhubarb, and so that was from a neighbor's patch, and their rhubarb, the stalks were very green. They didn't have much color to them. Now, this year's that I just bottled here a couple weeks ago is much more of a ruby color because the variety that I'm growing here at my place and now is established has a lot of red in the stalks. So that came over.
A pinkish hue,
Nice.
if you will.
I grew up in Pueblo, and we grew rhubarb. And I think we just have the variety that you can't ever kill. That was its main. Because it got to be a weed, and my folks would make me go out there and pull those weeds up, get that rhbarb out of there. Oh, Jesus Christ! You can't, I mean, I'm sorry. It's just like feed me, Seymour. You can't get rid of that stuff.
It's once it's established, it's pretty permanent.
It's the bamboo of edible plants. We had asparagus around the yard, around the fence line when I was growing up, which grows up to be a beautiful fern, it turns out.
Mm-hmm. And tastes good too.
Yeah, well, sure. If you think about picking it at the right
remember
time.
to do it in the early spring. Yeah.
So it's pretty much essentially, I mean, after primary fermentation is done, and we can't skip. You talked about yeast nutrient. In a way, these kinds of sugar heavy wines are a lot like mead in that, and hard seltzer, in that there's not a lot of food for the yeast to eat, and you've really got to take care of them with nutrients to make sure that the fermentation is healthy and you don't get kind of rocket fuel. you guys, Ron, you talk about your yeast nutrient strategy. What do you have favorites, or do you use certain things on, say, meads that you might not use on wines, or is it all kind of pretty much the same stuff?
Don't get into it deep enough to have a strategy. My strategy seems like about 1 tablespoon per gallon of yeast nutrient, and a little less of DAP seems to work. So whether it's mead or wine, that's what I hit it with. If it's anything that's high sugar.
That's pretty much what I do.
You just don't want to put too much.
Yeah, you just want too much.
like the mead that I made, that I was just like, I'll make sure it's well and nutriented, and there's a little bit of uric acid left over.
Extra flavor.
Poor uric. I knew him well.
Alas.
Alas, my glass.
But you pretty much have to do a primary fermentation and then a secondary fermentation, right? I mean, you talked about using the bag to to get the pulp out, or to get the chunks out, which is a really good strategy. But it probably would be smart to do some sort of filtering to get a pretty clear product from your primary fermentation into your secondary, right?
So yeah, after I pull the bag and then dump from the bucket into a carboy, then I'll let it sit there and really finish out the fermentation somewhere between a month and whenever I remember, somewhere between 1 and 3 months. And then the reason I go for that 3.5 gallon is from there I can rack off into a 3 gallon carboy, filling it clear to the top in a couple months, and then I'll let it sit in that 3 gallon carboy for another 6 months or ever, whenever I get back to it to actually go bottle.
Right. And so, do you use any fining agents? Do you use any sparkleoid or anything like that?
I have not in the wine.
Yeah. If you have enough time to let it go, that's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Time is always your friend in terms of winemaking, I think.
What about stabilizing? I guess if you ferment dry, there's no need to add any kind of a stabilizer at that time.
Yeah. The final gravity on what you're drinking was 0.990.
Yeah, there's no sugar left, yeah.
But it's got a nice mouthfeel, though, still.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And nice, we call them legs, when I swish the glass around.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some body to this wine. Yeah, so you didn't use any potassium sorbate or metabisulfite in the finished product?
I use those occasionally on some meads if they're a sweeter mead. But
yeah.
And one reason why you would want to use a stabilizer is if you wanted to back sweeten with either more juice or more sugar or something like that, in order to get more sweetness in the product. This doesn't need it, but you could also post fermentation adjust the acidity with an acid blend, or you could put some tannins in there if you wanted to, if it was appropriate. So there's this is perfectly fine the way it is, but if you weren't completely happy with the way the end product came out, there are still some things that you can use to adjust it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, winemaking is an area that's kind of my next frontier. Last spring and the spring before, I planted 28 different grapevines of wine variety grapevines. So,
wow,
I've got 7 different varieties that'll hopefully grow in Colorado. Obviously not the Cabernets and the things you're used to, but still be a couple years before I get grapes from them. But when I do, I hope to become better at the winemaking.
Excuse me, what grapes did you plant?
On the reds, I have Verona, Marquette, Frontenac, and Crimson Pearl. And then for the whites, I have Itasca, Brianna, and Clarion.
Interesting. And I've never heard of any of those, but it's just so interesting how in our part of the world we have a grape called Norton, which also goes by Cynthiana. It's a big red grape and makes a wonderful wine. But generally, we can't really grow grape stock that well here either. Compared to France or California, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
some of these are fairly new varieties that have come out of like the University of Minnesota.
mm-hmm.
Some of those breeding programs that are specifically trying to get wine grapes that'll do better in the north. So, some of them have only been out for 4 or 5 years from those breeding programs.
Concord grows pretty well around here. Back in the day, there were lots of vineyards that mostly went to like Welch's, places like that.
Yep.
But
my uncle used to drive grapes from Tawnytown to St. Louis to make grape, Welch's grape stuff with.
Mm-hmm.
I think Concord does well every place. It's pretty hardy.
Yeah.
It's the rhubarb of grapes.
Rhubarb of grapes.
Well, the Post, at least Post Winery down in Altus, Arkansas, makes a Concord wine. It's pretty potent and pretty sweet, but it goes well in the crock pot with a roast. That's what I use it for mostly. But Arkansas is also good for. And Steve, you visited the wineries down there. There's some more sophisticated vintages or wines down there, including the muscadine.
Including muscadine.
Yeah. So what's your are there any fruits that you have on your list of that you'd want to make into a wine, Ron?
Oh, there's I'd like to try plums. So in 2020 we bought the place we live on now and planted 19 fruit trees. So hopefully within the next few years we'll start getting more. So we did plant four plum trees. So hopefully we'll have enough for some plum, and then apples and peaches and pears and apricots. And
wow. And
Nice.
you've still got the bees?
yes, yeah, up to, have had as much as 8 hives, down to 4 right now.
Well, with the bees, you should do well then.
Yeah, we've a couple of years ago when we had 8 hives, I had harvested 777 pounds of honey.
My goodness.
What?
Wow.
777 pounds?
Correct.
Those are some industrious bees. Holy smokes. That's a lot.
Yeah, everything was just right. Colorado doesn't get much rain, but it happened to hit at the right time, which really brought the flowers on just right.
Yep.
Wow. So do you sell it?
Yes, we just word of mouth, cottage industry, sell a couple 100 pounds a year.
Wow.
Well, that year we sold more.
Yeah, I'd say. I thought about beekeeping for about 15 minutes, but then I thought, well, what if it swarms? And there's all kinds of things that you got to look out for, and got to treat the bees for diseases, and
it's much harder in a humid climate like where you live, because there are a lot more viruses and funguses and et cetera that a beehive can get. Where we're dry enough, we still have to worry about the mites and stuff that everybody has to worry about. But a friend of mine that I helped his kids learn how to raise bees, then they moved down to Missouri where it was humid and just lost the hives in no time due to all kinds of new diseases and stuff that they weren't prepared for, having raised bees up here.
Wow. Well, this has been the wine is delicious. I think we've had rhubarb in beverages before. Maybe with the beers from maybe Scott Housel. It seems like he gave us some rhubarb.
Maybe
what triggered me to send you the bottles were, I think it was and I was like 3 months late listening to it, but I think it was a February podcast, one of those where you roll the dice and make the beer based on the rolls, and whoever was making the beer had a sour was
that's right,
one of the rolls, and he'd used rhubarb to sour that beer, and a couple people on that podcast had mentioned they weren't familiar with rhubarb.
Well, there you go. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what you see. After about 950 episodes, things run together, Ron.
I don't doubt it.
yeah.
I have to search the RSS feed to see if see if we've done a show on something before. This has been a lot of fun. I'm glad you sent it because it's delicious.
Thank you.
And it'll go with my gumbo that I'm going to have for supper this evening.
Oh yeah, it go great with gumbo. It's actually, I was going to say this wine, I think, stands up very well to light rosés and lighter white wines like Pinot Grigios, Pinot Gris, Sauvignon Blancs, and then all the different little kinds of rosés so you can get that are just really lightly done, where they didn't leave it on the skins very long. This absolutely drinks. And I guess where I'm going is I would pour this for my wine drinking snob friends who don't think that a fruit wine could be good at all. Oh. I would pour this for them and not say a word.
That's high praise.
And they would like it.
And it'd be fun to see if they could guess what it was that they were drinking. Yeah.
It definitely has a little savory note to it on my palate, which I really kind of like. I find that really, really intriguing and interesting note to the wine. And it's certainly not shy. It's 13%. So, it's right up there. And again, I praise it in that it doesn't taste like a homemade wine. It doesn't have that, ooh, put some more hops in it, dude. It didn't have that thing going on.
No, it's very sophisticated. Well, guys, this has been a fun conversation. We don't talk about wine much on the show, but it's a nice little change of pace. So Ron, once again, thanks for sending it.
Well, you're very welcome.
And Steve, thanks for sharing your experience and sipping along.
Sipping along. That's my middle name.
Is that hyphenated?
Yeah. That's what they say about me down at the mercantile store. Where's old sipping along been?
Sipping along Cassidy.
Sipping along Cassidy.
All right. Okay. So Ron and Steve, appreciate it, guys, and Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year.
Yes. Merry Christmas too.
Thanks again to Ron and Steve. I was impressed by that wine, very sophisticated. Coming up later this week, Steve and I are set to get together to shoot a video about his muscadine wine. Really looking forward to that. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.